I'm Tay, and here we brew the unfiltered conversation about women's health. Coffee and Cramps is a space where we can discuss those taboo topics on women's health and basically pull back the curtains and show us the skeletons, essentially. We're going to have real, honest conversations about women's health and what women go through. And we're going to talk to some amazing people who are going through lived experiences and just hearing from everyday voices. So think of it as Coffee and Cramps as a place where you go to have coffee with your best friend, whether that be a gin, a bubbles, a hot cup of tea or a coffee, or matcha, because we know we all gotta love our matcha girlies. So yeah, welcome to Coffee and Cramps. I began to show my story on social media such as Instagram and TikTok. And it was basically a space for me to show people what endometriosis was and to find a community of women that are facing similar struggles. So yeah, I started sharing my story online, and yeah, I've met amazing women. And I kind of asked myself, actually, I was kind of like, well, you know, here we are, and where does my life in Endo go? What do we do with my life in Endo? And I started to realize that there weren't honest chats about endo, fertility struggles, or basically women's health. Like, none of that was really being discussed. And so I wanted to create a safe space where women feel heard, they feel seen, and we can have those honest conversations, we can have those honest discussions, and have zero fucking judgment, because we're all pretty much going through the same thing anyway. So, you know. We are going to talk about pain, we are going to talk about fertility struggles, we're going to talk about mental health issues in women's health, and we're going to talk about everything in between that. Like I say, there's going to be honest conversations with coffee, because if we don't laugh, we're going to probably cry. And I'm an ugly crier. There's going to be discussions had about endometriosis, polycystic ovaries, like I say, fertility struggles, IVF challenges, endometriosis, correct me if I'm saying it wrong, and all the real parts of women's health, basically. Where we create openness. I think that's probably the biggest part, is like we need to create those open and honest conversations, because if you don't, like, what are we doing? You know, there's 190 million women globally suffering with endometriosis alone. So yeah, why are we not talking about it? Why are we not discussing these things? For me personally, when I first really noticed something wasn't right, I actually woke up one morning and I couldn't walk. Like I couldn't get up to my feet. Like I was just kind of like, oh, this is a real shit period. Like, awesome. Really want to start my week off like that. So yeah, I could barely get to my feet to go to work, and I knew I had to be at work. But yeah, I just didn't feel right. But I got myself up, I got myself going, and yeah, I started the process of getting dressed to go to work. And in that realm of things, I got in the car, drove myself to work, and on the drive there, I ended up getting a flat tire in the middle of the fucking rain, in the middle of winter. So that was great. And I kind of figured, well, my pain's not going to get sorted out, the rain will certainly do that for me. So I enjoyed a 10 to 15 minute walk to work from my car to get myself there. And it wasn't upon arriving at work that a colleague of mine actually turned around and said, this isn't normal. Part of me wanted to go, no shit, but yeah, I didn't. She kind of said, this isn't normal, and you know, you need to really listen to your body. So I kind of finally realized I actually needed to take that on board and stop putting something like work before my health. And I feel like for so many years I'd done that. You know, I was always feeling tired. I was always feeling like I was in pain, but it had that stigma about it. It was that bad period, and I just kind of kept going, as many of us do. So yeah, that's when I kind of finally realized that actually, hang on a minute, this isn't normal. My first surgery, which was about 18, 17 years old, I was finally diagnosed with endometriosis. There were kind of a flood of emotions, and it wasn't like relief or anything like that. It was more like a fear. There was like a whole lot of panic, and a shit ton of confusion. And like, truth be told, I didn't know what endometriosis was. And if I'm really fucking honest, I spent the first year after my diagnosis calling it endomendi, because I didn't know endometriosis was a thing. I couldn't actually pronounce it properly. It took me a while. It took me a little minute. But yeah, it wasn't something that like I looked for. I happened to go to that emergency department. I happened to have an emergency surgery, and that's where they discovered it, because the pain was so severe for me. And even with those answers, I still carried on as normal. I still dismissed my period or my symptoms as just a bad period. Like I said, I had a little understanding, I had a little knowledge, and I didn't realize how much endometriosis was actually quietly impacting my life. So yeah, for me, I just carried on. I carried on with the bad periods. I carried on with the pain, the fatigue, and I never actually sourced answers. I just had endometriosis, you know, like my bad periods had a medical name. That's all it was for me, because I didn't know where to go. I didn't know how to find information or look for that information. Yeah, so it just kind of like, that's all it really was. Fast forward to my 30th birthday, I was finally diagnosed with, I believe, my 4th surgery. And I was finally diagnosed with stage 4 endometriosis. So prior to this surgery, I never had a stage. It was just endometriosis. On my 30th, I was finally diagnosed with stage 4. And yeah, so I was actually in hospital for my 30th birthday, which I was super, super gutted about. But that's kind of where I kind of woke up out of surgery, and my surgeon turned to me and said, look, your endometriosis is quite severe and we can't get it all. And you may or may not be able to have kids in the future. Being a mum was a massive part of my dream, you know. I had that whole white picket fence in my head, career, and then a family. So yeah, for me, it shocked me. And I just kind of was like, well, what, like, you know, what? Like, so yeah, it was a very emotional roller coaster having that diagnosis. And following that surgery, I had another one about 6 months down the track. In the midst of that, I had also had a medication reaction to anti-nausea, and so my final surgery was delayed as well, because they were a little bit nervous that my hands didn't open. So once we finally had the surgery, I woke up from that surgery, and my specialist finally told me that I had a 25% chance at conceiving naturally. So this was a little bit hard hitting for me. It was a little bit emotional. I was a bit kind of like, shit, what now, you know? And thinking back on it, if I had a little bit more information when I was 18 years old, it may have saved my chance at fertility now. And that's probably where a lot of this comes from. This is why wherein why I wanted to create Coffee and Cramps, why I wanted to share my story, because the lack of information I had back then now seriously affects my life, and I don't wish that on anyone. So to come to realization that there is little information about it, I seriously wanted to advocate more and more. I wanted to speak on it. I wanted to discuss it. Women's health is such a crucial part of the world, and so many women suffer. And that's the mind-boggling thing. You know, especially in the endometriosis world, it's 1 in 10, I believe. And so that works out to be 190 million women globally suffer with endometriosis. How many women that affect, I don't know fertility-wise, but you know, it's not just even infertility that it affects. It affects the things such as your working environment, you know, your family home, your mental health. You know, there's so many different layers in the onion that, you know, women's health is quite important, and no one discusses that. And I really wish people did, because like I say, I may have saved my fertility now. So between the battles of endometriosis and medication reaction, last year I decided to try and conceive. Whilst this was both very exciting and also very fucking terrifying, I had a combination of highs and lows. I had a lot of hopeful moments, so much heartbreak, and a lot of setbacks. And like, fertility struggles have become such an important part of my world. Like, it's part of my reality now, and I didn't think it would be. Like, every part of me still dreams that I was that girl that got pregnant, had a baby, you know, like everything fallen in line. But unfortunately, it's not my situation. So IVF feels like a mountain. It also feels like a massive lifeline as well. When you kind of feel like you're making progress in your fertility journey, and then you kind of get that setback, and you feel like you just, you think you're making it, you're doing well, you know, this is the month, we're going to do it this month. And then you have those crushing moments where, you know, it's not, or you're consistently testing, or, you know, you're tracking your ovulation, and you're just going through so many different stages of fertility. After losing my only 2 pregnancies ever, it really kind of set in reality for me what that 25% meant. You know, like 25%, I think in my head, like, oh my God, there's still a very good chance. But endometriosis is an inflammation condition. So, you know, I'm looking at it going, well, my womb is so inflamed that how's that really going to work? And like, as well, I think that 25% chance is so slim. And I didn't realize how hard that struggle would be. Following my last pregnancy, or my last miscarriage, we had a surgery as well. So they were worried that it was going to be an ectopic pregnancy. So they went in and had a look. And within that time frame, I had miscarried my second pregnancy. And so within such a short space of time, you go from like this high of, oh my God, I'm pregnant. You know, like, it's happened. Like, you know, we're going to be okay. We don't need to go through this IVF journey. And then, boom, it hits you. And it just comes down like a ton of fucking bricks. And it did. It shattered me. And so with that, I kind of was like, this journey is going to be a whole lot harder than I anticipated. And so here we are. Here we are on an IVF journey. And And see, that's the other probably point of it as well. A lot of people don't see the behind the scenes of women's health conditions. You know, a lot of it like endometriosis and those bad periods, they're often misunderstood, and it's the exhaustion, it's the invisible pain, it's the fatigue, it's the fertility challenges that are always easily overlooked. So pulling those curtains back, it's opening up and seeing that there are actually invisible struggles women go through. There is chronic pain, there is an exhaustion, fertility, and daily mental struggles, you know. And I mean, a lot of people don't understand, even losing those pregnancies, that mental health, you know, because you gear yourself up to being pregnant to then losing your child all of a sudden. And so it's those mental health, and it's consistently battling with that and consistently telling yourself, no, it's okay. No, you're okay. You know, allow yourself to cry, damn it. Like, seriously. You need to understand the smallest of things can trigger women, especially women who are suffering with chronic illnesses. The likes of a busy schedule, unexplained pain flare-ups, comments that are hurtful, the stress, the anxiety. It's all of those combination of things that people don't often see. You know, so like I've had a amount of people come up to me and say, it'll happen one day, it'll be great, you know. And you just kind of sit there and go, oh, thanks. I mean, yeah, I don't know how many times I had literally wanted to hit the roof. But I know that those comments come from such a meaningful place, and I just didn't want to do that. But it's realizing that, it's understanding that, and I think education, even on the outer circle of supporting those women, that outer layer, your support network, they need to also be educated, because endometriosis, like I say, it's not just you, it's everyone else as well. That support network becomes such an integral part of your world. And I rely heavily on my support network, like massively. I do a lot of the work myself, but I rely heavily on them for the days where I can't vacuum, for the days I physically cannot get out of bed, for the days where I literally want to scream at someone. And it's not saying this is what endometriosis is. It's about actually saying, hey, this is how I feel, this is what's happening for me. And I've had to learn that. So yeah, it's about educating your outside circle as well. Coping comes with a mix of things. Like, it's a coping to set those boundaries. It's a leaning on your support network. It's speaking to those professionals when you really need that help. And it's prioritizing your self-care moments. You know, going out with your friends when you're able to, and on the days where the pain's so severe, run yourself a warm bath, have a spa, you know, go get a massage. It's all those little things that, yeah, I find self-care so important, because if that makes you feel good in that moment, then you're going to end up with a better day. So yeah, your coping strategies and figuring out how you deal with living with a chronic condition plays such a big role. And like, I can't vouch for that, like, any more than I can. Like, I don't know, I'm a big believer in the likes of finding what really works for you and using those skills, because that's going to make the process so much better for yourself. It's a consistent balancing act. It's finding those what works and how you manage and all those wonderful things. Like, it's a learning curve, I think, for everyone, essentially. And I think everyone involved really needs to hear that. I mean, I'm still learning. I went from calling endometriosis endomendi, you know, to now advocating for women. So yeah, really, like, learning is such a key part of living with someone or living with a chronic illness, and consistently growing and understanding is huge. Going on from that, learning and growing is, like I say, is an important part, but what I've come to realize is, and I think this goes through a lot of things. I think this goes through facing the challenges of, you know, endometriosis and figuring out the struggles of fertility and all of those kinds of things. IVF here in New Zealand, I've had to learn to navigate it. I've had to learn to understand the criteria to receive funding for IVF treatment. So given I was told I had 25% chance, it was recommended to me that I proceed with IVF treatment. And I went into my fertility appointment and thought, oh, perfect, you know, it's fine. Like, you know, here in New Zealand, we've got a government funded system. Like, I can just get on that. I've had this condition for years. And, you know, like, I really thought that, okay, I'm gonna get that funding. Come to realize I'm not getting that funding. So I've had to learn that there is a criteria, and like understanding that criteria and what that actually means. So accessing treatment isn't as easy as what we all think it is. So for myself personally, I have had to lose weight to receive treatment, like government funded IVF treatment. So once I lose that weight, then there is a 16-month wait list. It could be more now, before you're even seen for the treatment. So you've kind of got to go through this whole tick the box and make sure you've got, you know, you cleared everything before you even are considered for treatment. And then once you get on that list, you've then got to wait an X amount of time before you even receive that treatment. So after realizing that, I kind of thought, well, for someone that's got, like, has been told she has a biological clock, I went from 9 months of a fertility window to now I've got 3 years, and like before I'm even receiving treatment. So I was kind of like, oh my God, like, how are we going to do this? Like, there's already a rush for me now because of endometriosis. They got rid of it, well, not rid of it, but they took out what they could, told me I'm 9 months, and then if not conceiving, then what? Like, you know, it's so like these were things going through my head. So yeah, finding out after finding out there was a long wait list, and the fact that you have to meet this criteria was just mind-boggling to me. And I didn't realize there were so many barriers and hurdles throughout that journey. Well, my personal experiences navigating that chance to try and achieve treatment really taught me a whole lot. It taught me patience, it taught me resilience, and what that actually means. And it's just not even just a medical thing. It's an emotional thing. It's a practical thing. It's like meeting that strict criteria by losing that weight just to get on a funding. Like, and I was kind of like, you know what? Like, oh my God, like I'm struggling to lose that weight because obviously endo causes a lot of bloating. So I fluctuate quite drastically. And then you get on this wait list, and if I don't make that wait list is so long. So, and just the questions go over and over and over. Honestly, it's a shit place to be involved in. Speaking about endo and polycystic ovaries and endometriosis and just not a bad period is like calling espresso just a coffee. It really does miss the entire point. Sharing people's experiences helps others feel seen, and I think that's probably the biggest part. Is throughout this whole podcast, I want to share people's stories, lived experiences, so other women feel seen, and we can build that community and that connection and make it so much more stronger. It's raising awareness, and it's helping to push for better understanding of women's health. You know, like, and I think that's probably the key point here. It's raising that awareness about women's health. Because women's health goes so far under the radar, and I think that there's a lot of things that could be changed in that kind of area. So I do believe that, raising awareness really brings that to the focus, and having a community really makes it stand out. Like, I think that's probably the best part. Having a community makes raising awareness stand out about women's health. It pushes for that better understanding. Highlighting endometriosis and women's health, seeing the unseen side of endo, and going beyond the pain is what people need to understand. And like I've finished touching on it, but I really do believe that seeing that unseen side of it really is going to make everyone involved feel supported, feel heard, feel, seen. And like I said, it strengthens those connections and raises that awareness. And that's probably the biggest thing to take away from this. To anyone who is newly diagnosed, undiagnosed, or on a fertility journey, please know you don't have to do it alone. And please don't try to do it alone. Source out the information, source out those support groups, ask those questions, trust your instinct, and surround yourself with support from loved ones. I think that's probably the biggest thing. Celebrate every small victory along the way, and that for me is important. Those days you can't get up, that's okay. Know that that's okay. But on those days if you're like, actually, I'm going to go mow those lawns today, do it. I know mowing lawns is a shit job, but do it. Because that there is a small victory. It's a small feather in your cap. And on those hard days, lean on that community you've created. Focus on those small wins. And I really hope this podcast helps and makes people feel less alone. Because I wish I didn't feel alone. And I don't want that for anyone else. So remember to have your simple self-care regime. Take a bath. Drink a coffee. Maybe matcha. And remind yourself that tomorrow is a new start. Don't take yesterday's pain into tomorrow's adventure. Because you don't want to have to consistently suffer in pain. So try your best just to live one day at a time. Take each moment by moment. Know that the journey won't be over. I think that's important to remember. There isn't a cure for endo or maybe other women's health issues, but know your journey isn't over. But with that being said, there's so many other avenues and stories in your journey as well, and I think that's really important. Carry a vision for better awareness, research, and support for women's health, because, your girls, they're important. And those for living with endo, especially, those that are going undiagnosed. And for all those women out there managing those health challenges, this is a space for you. This is an area designed for you. As a unit, we are a group, we are a community. So yeah, you're always welcome here. Remember, we are going to chat about it. We're going to talk about it. We're going to touch topics on it. And while we do that, we're going to have a coffee at a time. But we don't want to overpower it because, endo warriors, caffeine isn't good for you. And second of all, I fly off the scales. Too much caffeine in my system. Next time on Coffee and Cramps, we will chat with Mum on a Mission. And honestly, I'm so excited for this. She is a mum trying to decode her daughter's puzzling symptoms and navigating the hurdles of advocating for her care. Could it be endometriosis? Could it be endometriosis? Could it be polycystic ovaries? I don't know. Think we're still working on it, but stay tuned. Make sure to hit the subscribe button below. Follow us on TikTok and at Instagram at My Life and Endo for the latest episode releases, which will follow. Thanks for joining our very first brew of unfiltered conversation about women's health. Until next time, sip, survive, and repeat. Bye. Bye.